That's what Christians do. We walk with the Spirit. What are the fruit of the Spirit that aid us in our walk? Well, patience is one of them, right? Fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience. Patience for the length and and really the pain involved in reorienting and reacclimating. It might be joyful. I mean, I have students that are working hard in their classes, and they're joyful, but they're stressed out and they're tired, and it hurts. It hurts to learn new things. And you need patience all through the process, don't you? Because it's really tempting to give up. So God supplies patience. And gentleness also characterizes step 2. The harshness of the Torah is really blunted in the New Testament. The warnings are severe because the consequences are severe, but our practices aren't meant to be. Christians have failed to observe that at times, and we've been embarrassed by our failures to observe that. But that's what you see in the New Testament. You don't see people being burned at the stake, for instance. How about some debates? We have a few minutes for debates. One of the characterizations of Catholic step 2 is that it's heavily sacramental. God infuses virtue. What are virtues? Well, patience, temperance, but also faith, hope, love. We receive those as gifts through the sacramental means that Jesus has designated. For Catholics, step 2 works sacramentally. So does step 1. Luther and later Protestants were unhappy with this word infusion, because it seems like once something's infused, it really belongs to us. It's ours. Right? If you have an infusion, if you have a blood infusion, well, it's yours now. For Luther, our whole hope begins and ends in nothing but our relationship with God. And you can't infuse a relationship. You know, my relationship with others isn't in me, it is between us, it's among us. So, Christ's righteousness never becomes my righteousness. It's never owned by me during step 2. He says it's imputed. It is regarded as mine, but it isn't mine. It's like if I give my kids my credit card, which I never do. I'm imputing assets to them that aren't theirs. And if they use them as mine. That's a Lutheran talk of imputation instead of a Catholic category of impartation or infusion. He'll even call it alien righteousness. It's not mine, it's God's. And because it's not mine, what step 2 looks like is paradoxical. I am justified, I'm right with God, and I'm even holy by virtue of my relationship with Christ. Yet at the same time, I'm still a sinner. And the old and the new war against one another. That's how Luther is going to describe this war between the flesh and the spirit in Galatians 5. We are simultaneously just and sinful. A lot of opponents to Luther, and even a number of Lutherans, deny that Luther taught progressive sanctification or progress in holiness. Luther did teach progress in holiness. Nevertheless, that wasn't where the emphasis went in his teaching. For Calvin, he was more positive about progressive sanctification through spiritual union with Christ. The Wesleyan tradition, you might say, moves even further in that direction, even further than Calvin did, by stressing sanctification. He was unhappy with how complacent the Anglican Church of his day was about people living the old way. Oh well, jet lag. Oh well. Like, no, not oh well. We're not to live this way. We should look different. A communion of saints ought to look holy. So the Wesleyan tradition is really distinguished by its emphasis on the different way that Christians look. We are to be holy as God is holy, and we can't, we struggle against the old, we struggle against our own old habits, but that never becomes an excuse. Otherwise, how will the world know that Jesus is anyone unless his people manifest the difference that he came to bring us? So that's the distinguishing feature of Wesleyan holiness Christianity. It really is distinctly step 2, I think. Whereas when we talked about Calvinism, I think that's really distinctly step 0. Calvinists want to root everything, this whole process, in God's prior unconditional election. So in a sense, their heart is to glorify God from eternity for all that's produced later on. And a good way to do that is to root it all in step 0. All of it is God's initiative realized over time. Wesleyans, I think, really are the Wesleyan heart is really in step 2.